Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be looking at all the features that are still missing from ships in Star Citizen. Believe it or not, despite all the depth in these ships, they are still somewhat shells of what they will end up being. And though there are still going to be a ton of features on this list, and this video might be a little long, remember some of these might take a long time to be implemented. CIG has talked about a good bit of these features recently, but in the end, when we finally get 1.0, there's still a chance that these features aren't filled out the way they actually originally told us. Regardless, thank you for being here. I am Kicker, and let's get this started. I wanted to apologize for my voice. It's a little raspy right now, generally feeling a little bit under the weather. Regardless, though, let's talk about the first thing on this list, and that is true ship modularity. That's not just fully implementing the ability to switch interiors for all ships that allow it, but also the ability to take something off of your ship in real time. A good example of this would be the Caterpillar's command module. Once full modularity is in, you should be able to detach and attach the command module freely wherever you are. Modularity is a pretty massive feature that we've been waiting on for a long time now. And it might not seem like a super important thing, but this should open up a ton of opportunities for ships. We can already see this a good bit with the retaliator that we got earlier this year. Is generally speaking, being able to switch out the torpedo and cargo module kind of lets you just stick with the same ship that you might enjoy, but also use it for different purposes. And I think generally that's pretty neat and it makes a nice difference for gameplay, I suppose. But full modularity, the ability to actually remove something in your ship in real time, plays into a lot of factors I think are missing from the game right now. And that also includes a feature that I'm going to be talking about later on this list. So we'll get to that in just a little bit. For this next feature, though, I'm not going to talk about it too much because I already have a whole video on it, but that would be Maelstrom. Maelstrom is the new damage and destruction system that will not only affect ships, but the environment. To put it very simply, this will allow your ships to take damage physically and in real time, meaning no more health pools and weird looking crashes. This will turn all violent interactions with your ship into a movie, crash landing, colliding, clipping a tiny rock, hit with a missile. Whatever it is, it will look more dynamic with Maelstrom. I'll probably put the clip on screen, but just for fun, I was in the PTU the other day and I decided to just crash my ship to show kind of how it is in the current state. Um, it wasn't terrible, I guess, but it really did just look kind of boring and it looked like the limbs of the ship got ripped off and that was it. Regardless, though, with Maelstrom, that'll turn into a much different experience where you should see your ship take a massive amount of damage and it be physically shown and changed in real time. The next feature, though, is probably one of my favorites, and that is the new quantum travel experience with new animations and quantum boost. If you remember last CitizenCon, this was shown off pretty thoroughly. The system has a cool new animation set attached to it, but now will require you to lock into the quantum bubble before you can let go of the actual stick. So you kind of saw it in the Star Citizen or CitizenCon demo, is that you kind of had to sit there for I think it was like maybe 20 seconds or so, making sure you were stayed aligned, and then you could let go. That won't really kill the kind of boringness that comes with like super long quantum jumps, as far as I'm concerned. But I do think that at least won't be nearly as mind numbing to actually have to take on a bit of a challenge for a little bit before you can kind of lay off and relax. But then they actually talked about the quantum boost mechanic, which I think everyone is excited for because there's so many objectives and places to go that require you to just fly without any sort of quantum. And even though that is somewhat enjoyable, it can be a real time killer. So I think it'll significantly cut down on the frustration and the tedious mechanics that we already have in the game right now. And generally speaking, the animations look sick. And I think that when we have the new animations in that they showed last CitizenCon, it'll make the quantum travel experience just look and feel a whole lot better. Next up, we have a feature that isn't really related as much to the last couple. This is more of on the gameplay side of things, and that is shipboarding mechanics. Now, of course, you can board a ship anytime you want using EVA, but I'm really talking about forcefully boarding a ship with another ship and hacking tools. So once a ship is basically immobilized, in the future you might be able to attach your ship to the enemy vessel and board. There are specific ships like the Legionnaire that will be designed specifically for this task, though boarding through EVA will always be a viable tactic. Generally speaking, we know that this isn't coming anytime soon because they have pushed the Legionnaire back from that 12-month time period that we originally had for it from last year's CitizenCon. So you probably shouldn't expect to see this anytime soon. Though in the future, whenever the Legionnaire is added and other ships have the capability of actually doing this, you will be able to attach yourself to a ship and board through that manner. And there's been a lot of like Q&As about shipboarding mechanics over time, and it's kind of hard to know what is actually going to come to the game. I really do hope that we get legitimate boarding though, because I think entering from one ship to the next without having the hassle of just EVAing to the other ship would be a lot more enjoyable and kind of make the gameplay flow just a little bit better for especially AI missions. Regardless, though, I think it'll be a massive part of fleet and capital ship combat, whatever that looks like. But hopefully, it provides a little bit more depth to mercenary and bounty hunting missions because they are sitting pretty dull and boring at the moment. Regardless, though, great feature. Super excited for it. Moving on, we have a much needed feature, and that is the full atmospheric flight model. As it stands right now, it doesn't really matter too much where you fly because regardless, you can just float uninterrupted and fly like gravity, and all opposing forces don't matter at all. This creates an extremely frustrating gameplay interruption because ships can go nose down and just light you up no matter what because of the current flight model. In the future, you will need VTOL thrusters to hover in a spot, and anything else will be able to hover for a short period of time, but then stall out. This will make ships like the Cutlass Steel and anything with a VTOL thruster more useful. It will also make taking off and landing a bit more of a hands-on experience and just generally look somewhat more authentic. Personally, this is a much needed feature because ship handling in atmosphere hasn't been the best for a while now. You should expect to see this sooner than later as it was shown off at last year's CitizenCon, but then again, we haven't heard much about it lately, so you really never know with CIG. And then this next feature, it mixes with ships a little bit, or with missing ships, and that's capital ships and their gameplay. I honestly think this will only matter closer towards 1.0 because capital ships will have a much greater role for territory control and depthful org play. We've gotten a small hint of capital ship gameplay in the verse with the Xeno threat and the board, the Idris type missions. These events are cool, but lack much depth other than just blowing up or stealing a big ship. In the future, if and when we might need a fleet for a mission, capital ships will act as a almost a mobile base for players. Our first player-owned capital ship will actually be releasing this year, that being the Polaris. Though I am excited to finally see one for myself, I don't think it'll have proper gameplay for a long time. And honestly, when it comes to the Polaris, Idris, Javelin, Kraken, these ships look amazing, and I can't imagine actually being in one because it sounds really cool. But right now, it's almost impossible to imagine there's actual useful gameplay for a ship that big and powerful. Yes, it'll take tons of resources to operate in the future. And at 1.0, I know many people won't be able to use them for a long time just due to the sheer cost the sheer cost of taking care of one of these and actually using it in the verse. Regardless, I really do hope that they come up with a reasonable way and purpose for these ships other than just having a big ship to fly a lot of people on. Even though that sounds kind of cool for the first 30 minutes, I would love there to be missions, AI, whether it's AI or actual players for fleet battles or actual territory control, not just made up territory control, which is kind of what we have now. And I know people can have fun with that, but I wouldn't say that that is really the type of gameplay that you should be going for with a game this big and this depthful. Again, super excited for it. I just hope that whenever it's released with the capital ships that we get over the next couple of years, there's actual proper gameplay for those when it comes to fleet battles and actual just capital ship battles. Next on this list, we have a pretty highly requested feature, and that is passenger and VIP transport gameplay. Ships like the 890 Jump and generally like most Origin ships lack a lot of gameplay due to this feature being missing. It's clear that it requires a lot of work to get NPCs interacting with ships and walking through them properly, though I think this will be a nice implementation for the game. I just hope it doesn't get the extremely lackluster tier 0 treatment that every gameplay loop has received. I know this part is a necessity sometimes when adding a new gameplay loop, but I can definitely imagine passenger transport being mind numbing if it lacks depth. Regardless, though, it sounds like a fun career path and also give a ton of new and existing ships a purpose. For me personally, I can't see myself doing passenger and VIP transport constantly, but one thing I do think that it really helps with the game is that it allows you to hear and talk, I guess, or interact with more human beings slash NPCs or real players in the game. In my honest opinion, and it's a hill I will die on, is that Star Citizen is one of the most unalive games for one of the most depthful worlds or I guess areas to explore that you have in video games. It's kind of remarkable that you have such crowded and large space stations and landing points that simply have no one to interact with or anyone to talk to. And of course, we know this will change over time, but as it stands right now, it is so dull walking around or flying around the universe because there's no voices, no faces to talk to. It's just text on a screen that you have to read and act like someone actually sent that to you or cares enough to send you that contract. My opinion, that takes me out of the immersion of this game a whole lot more than I realize it over time. So I do think that this career path might add a little bit more like life, I guess, to the verse. You're moving around actual people, and even though it might be similar to hauling, at least that's kind of how it feels in my head. I do think that it'll be a pretty enjoyable one, and it'll give a lot of purpose to, again, like I said, more ships that previously have no gameplay to them. So I'm excited for it. I don't think it'll come anytime soon because it's clear that NPCs have a ton before they can really be implemented the way they talked about it years ago. But regardless, again, I'm excited and hopefully we see it sooner than later. And next on this list, it's gonna be the feature I talked about when it comes to modularity and modularity helping this feature to actually come into the game, and that is escape pods. Escape pods are a very exciting feature. They add a fun new part to ship combat and survival. Once features like Death of a Spaceman and better rescue and recovery are implemented, this feature could be awesome. Right now, there's no reason to escape your ship in the event that it would blow up, and this will hopefully change when CIG implements more reasons to stay alive and fight another day. Though I don't expect to see this feature anytime soon, I'd absolutely love to see it at some point in the future when it really matters. I know this is a kind of a dumb take, I guess, or not, maybe not a dumb take, but a dumb feature to add to this list. I know not a ton of people talk about this or probably care too much about escape pods right now because in the game they really don't matter. But I do think it's a bit of an exciting thing to think about in the future whenever your ship is really going through it and it's life or death, and you have the ability to hop in a pod and shoot out and do whatever you will be able to do in the future with escape pods at that point. Regardless, I think it's a little bit more interesting to me than just exiting and EVAing out of your ship and praying you don't get mowed down, I guess, in the process. I don't really have a super great reason as to why I'm so excited for escape pods. But it just sounds like a lot of fun, especially when it really matters. I think it'll be a really adrenaline pumping moment for a lot of players to be in the battle and know that you're going to take the loss and it's you or you're going to die. So I think it'll be a cool feature. I don't think we'll see it anytime soon until we get any mention of Death of a Spaceman and then maybe a year or two after that. Of course, that's kind of me just joking around, but then again, that's kind of been the reality the past couple of years, so maybe I'm not. Regardless, let's talk about the final feature, and that is going to be one that we're getting soon, and that is engineering and life support systems. Again, like everything added to this game, this feature will not be complete when we finally get it in 4.0. Engineering will be a great addition for players when it comes to multi-crew gameplay and combat. You will no longer just have to watch your friend pilot the ship while you sit there and do nothing. Now you have the opportunity to adjust all power and resources to benefit the fight and make a decent difference. You will need to be prepared for every expedition, and you could suffer some consequences if you don't maintain your ship during flight. You'll be able to drain a room of its oxygen to put out fires and or kill any life that lacks a spacesuit. In the future, you will be able to control more things like gravity generators, but don't expect that for a bit, in my opinion. Engineering and life support we've heard about for a long time now, and honestly, I'm kind of tired of hearing it, and I'm just excited for it to be in the game and do what it's supposed to do. I'm excited because I think that carrying more than one person on the ship is one of the most boring things you can do in this game. It's really just locking someone into a space and giving them practically nothing to do. So hopefully when this comes online, there will be a lot more reasoning to actually be on a ship with someone else and not just sit there or be on a turret the whole time and just wait until you see a target or something like that. I will definitely be seeing how this works a lot more whenever we get it in the PTU, whatever. I'm not Evocati at all, so I won't be seeing that any shortly. But whenever we see in the PTU or live for 4.0, I'll definitely be seeing how this actually affects ship gameplay, but I don't expect it to do all of what we want it to do until more things like the atmospheric flight model, modularity, all these things that are kind of interconnected with each other are finally are implemented. That's I think whenever we will see engineering really shine is whenever it really actually matters. Ships, I don't think they're still going to matter. And when 4.0 comes at all, there won't be really any incentive to maintain your ship, make sure it stays alive for those long expeditions. People will still backspace and just let it blow up. And I honestly don't blame them because right now there's no reason to. And this game is so riddled with bugs that it can be more frustrating than fun to actually go through these systems where you're supposed to take care and manage your ship. Though I do think in the future, whenever they inevitably are forced to add these additions to the game, like, you know, Death of a Spaceman and, valuable loot that's not just weapons and armor, it'll be exciting, and I think it'll really make more sense. But again, with almost everything on this list, like I really talked about, you should not expect to not only see them anytime soon, but for them to actually make much of a difference until we get more meaningful gameplay. I plan on making many videos about the gameplay of Star Citizen, why it is probably the worst you can play right now. It is very lacking in depth, but I think a lot of these features will really shine whenever gameplay is introduced properly and it has more depth to it. But until then, we get to be excited about these features and hope that we hear something about it in the next week or so, actually, for CitizenCon. Regardless, though, I'm excited. I hope you're excited because a lot of these will be some game changers for just how we fly every day with ships. But I think it'll be fun and it'll be great to see these come online within the next decade or so. Regardless, I just wanted to go take a list of some of the features that we're missing in this game. There's still a ton that I haven't talked about. The one that I'm really excited for that really has no effect on anything is the actual interaction of pushing buttons, but God knows we won't see that anytime soon. So hopefully, all the features, the ones I talked about here, the ones I haven't talked about, we'll see within our lifespan. But thank you for being here. I this just wanted to make a short video with a little bit of just like off scriptness in there, whatnot, just to talk about all these cool features. If you're excited for CitizenCon, let me know. Tell me what you're most excited about in the comments below and just tell me how you feel about these features. I'm generally excited for all of them, but if there's one that stands out or one that you really aren't excited for, feel free to let me know. I have a few other videos about Star Citizen right now. If you want to check those out, I'll put those at the end here. Regardless, though, again, like I said, thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed listening, and feel free to support the channel if you'd like to. Feel free to dislike if you didn't like the video. Regardless, though, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next video.